Okay, buckle up. This is gonna be long, raw, and probably uncomfortable. But it's my truth. My mom didn't just warn me about men. She built a fortress of fear around me, brick by brick, using her own trauma as mortar. And I lived inside that fortress for 23 years. Breaking free wasn't heroic, it was messy, painful, and cost me the only family I had. But on the other side, peace and a love I was taught to believe was impossible. No names, just facts. The foundation, fear as first language. My earliest memories aren't of playgrounds or bedtime stories. They're of whispered warnings, tight grips on my wrist in public, and a constant, low-level hum of anxiety that came from her. My father, a ghost, vanished before I could form a coherent memory of him. According to my mom, he was the blueprint for all male evil, a liar, a cheater, emotionally cruel, and physically threatening. He would have ruined us, she'd say, her voice tight. Men like that drain you until there's nothing left but an empty shell. There were no photos, no letters, no child support checks, just this gaping absence filled with her narrative of male toxicity. She never dated, never had a male friend. Our social circle was exclusively women. Her sisters, her colleagues, all female-dominated fields. My grandmother. Men were discussed in hushed, disdainful tones, like they were carriers of a contagious disease. The message wasn't subtle, it was the air I breathed. Men equals danger. Men equals pain. Men equals betrayal. Programming the protector, my childhood operating system. This wasn't abstract philosophy, it was daily, practical indoctrination. Every interaction was filtered through her lens of suspicion. Age 6, a boy in my class shared his crayons. Mom's reaction that evening, Hayes being nice now, but it's a trick. Boys always want something. Remember, kindness from a male is the first step to manipulation. I stopped sharing crayons back. Age 9, a male neighbor offered to help me fix my bike chain when it came off. I politely declined, ran inside shaking. Mom praised my good instincts and warned me he was probably testing my boundaries. Age 12, getting my first period was terrifying enough. Mom's talk wasn't about biology, it was a survival briefing. This makes you vulnerable. Men can smell vulnerability. They see it as an invitation. Your body is now a target. Guard it fiercely. Puberty wasn't a change, it was becoming prey. Age 14, mentioned a male teacher who explained a math concept patiently after class. Mom demanded his name, his schedule, and spent the evening researching him online, concluding he was too attentive and probably grooming students. She requested I be moved to a different class. The school refused. I avoided that teacher like the plague, convinced his kindness was a predatory trap. Age 16, prom was the ultimate battleground. You think it's about dancing. She scoffed. It's about dark corners, spiked punch, boys who see no as a challenge. Rape happens in limos, in bathrooms, in alleys behind banquet halls. Is a cheap dress and bad music worth that risk? I stayed home. We watched romantic comedies. Ironically, the only depictions of men she tolerated were fictional ones safely contained on screen, where their flaws were scripted and manageable. She'd point at the male leads. See, even the nice ones lie. They're all selfish underneath. My friends' photos the next day felt like postcards from a forbidden planet. College applications, the only acceptable options were women's colleges. Co-ed dorms are just assault factories with better funding, she declared. Lecture halls full of men. Distractions at best, dangers at worst. You need a safe space to learn. I applied to 3 all-women's schools, got into one. Her relief was palpable. Now I can sleep at night. I believed her. Why wouldn't I? She was my entire world, my sole parent. She worked relentlessly, often to jobs, to keep us in a modest but safe apartment. She sacrificed constantly, reminding me it was just us against the world. Her fear felt like protection, her warnings like love. The cost? I developed physical reactions to male proximity. A deep flinch if a male teacher accidentally brushed my shoulder reaching for a book. Panic attacks in crowded spaces with too many unfamiliar men. It eat lunch alone in a bathroom stall or an empty stairwell to avoid the cafeteria. Making eye contact with a boy felt like a dangerous act of rebellion. My social development was stunted, frozen in a state of hypervigilance. The cracks appear. Witnessing normalcy ages 19 to 21 college, ironically the safe women's space, became the first place where the fortress walls began to crumble. My roommate, let's call her Sarah, was normal, well-adjusted. She had a loving, involved father, brothers she teased and adored. One weekend, her family visited. The sheer normalcy of their interactions was jarring. Her dad hugged me hello, a brief, warm, paternal hug. My body braced for impact, for the expected violation, but nothing happened. He was just kind. He brought Sarah extra blankets because the dorm heating is unreliable and made sure we both had snacks. Her younger brother, maybe 15, was awkward but sweet, showing us funny videos on his phone. They joked, debated movies, and genuinely seemed to like each other. No undercurrent of fear. No whispered warnings. Just a family. Later, on my nightly call with Mom mandatory, always, I tentatively mentioned it. Sarah's family is really nice. Her dad seems cool. The temperature on the other end of the line dropped instantly. Cool? Don't be naive. Men like that are the most dangerous. They play the long game. They groom the whole family to get access. That niceness is just a mask. Remember what I told you. Predators are charming. It's how they operate. Her voice was sharp, laced with disbelief that I could be so foolish. But the seed was planted. For the first time, her absolute narrative didn't perfectly align with my direct experience. I started noticing things I'd been trained to ignore or misinterpret. A male professor who stayed an hour after office hours every week, patiently helping struggling students understand complex theory, asking for nothing in return. An elderly man, a grandfather volunteering tirelessly at the campus community garden, patiently teaching students about composting, his hands gentle on the seedlings. My female friends talking about their boyfriends not just in terms of attraction, but of support. He stayed up all night helping me finish my paper. He drove across town to bring me soup when I had the flu. He stood up for me when that guy was being creepy at the party. I stopped sharing these observations with Mom. A tiny, secret space opened up inside me where doubt began to grow. The first rebellion, defying the script age 22, I got a part-time job off campus at a small, independent bookstore. The owner and manager was a man in his late 40s, quiet, intensely bookish, with kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. He was organized, fair, and genuinely passionate about literature. One slow afternoon, we ended up discussing Mary Oliver poems for 20 minutes. It was pleasant, stimulating. No hidden agenda, just a shared appreciation for words. Feeling a flicker of something resembling normalcy, I mentioned it to Mom during our call. My manager at the bookstore, Hayes, really into poetry. We talked about Mary Oliver today. Her reaction was immediate and volcanic. Manager, poetry, what's his full name? I'll run a background check. Right now. That's not appropriate. Hayes your boss, not your friend. That interest is calculated. Hayes testing your boundaries, seeing how receptive you are. This is classic grooming behavior. You need to quit. Immediately. It's not safe. The sheer irrationality of it, the leap from a conversation about nature poems to grooming, hit me differently this time. It felt suffocating, paranoid, unreasonable. A spark of anger, unfamiliar but potent, flared in my chest. Hayes just my boss, Mom. I snapped, my voice louder than intended. We talked about poems for 20 minutes. That's it. The silence on the other end was heavy, dangerous. Then, coldly, they always start as just something. A boss, a teacher, a friend of a friend. They build trust slowly. They make you feel special. Then they pounce. Come home this weekend. You're quitting that job. I didn't go home that weekend. I didn't quit the job. But I stopped telling her anything about work, about my manager, about my life outside the dorm walls she approved of. It was a small act of defiance, but it felt monumental. I was actively hiding parts of myself to preserve a sliver of sanity. The betrayal and the breaking point. Age 23, I made a friend. A genuine, platonic friend. And he was a guy. Let's call him Ben. He was in my ethics seminar. Smart, quiet, a bit awkward like me. We ended up studying together for the midterm. He was respectful, never pushed personal boundaries, seemed to intuitively understand my skittishness. Had keep a respectful physical distance, focus on the material. Once, I offhandedly mentioned I hated sushi. At our next study session, he brought a container of cut-up mangoes. Figured this was a safe choice, he said with a shy smile. It was nice and complicated. I started to relax fractionally around him. One evening, we were texting about an assignment deadline. My iPad, synced to my phone, was charging on my desk. Mom, visiting for the weekend, her unannounced visits were becoming more frequent. A sign of her escalating anxiety about my perceived independence picked it up. She claimed she was checking the weather, but moments later, I heard gasps, then furious tapping. She'd seen the texts, seen a male name. What happened next was a blur of pure, unadulterated panic, hers and mine. She screamed. Accusations flew. Who is he? What has he done to you? Has he touched you? Has he given you drugs? I knew it. I know you were being targeted. She demanded his full name, his dorm room number. She grabbed her phone, threatening to call campus police, calling him a predator and a pedophile. He was 22. I was 23. She was hysterical, tears streaming, her voice raw with a terror that felt both real and utterly detached from reality. She stormed out of my room, intent on finding him. I chased her, sobbing, begging, pleading with her to stop, to listen, that he was just a steady partner, a friend. She rounded on me in the hallway, her face contorted with rage and fear. Friend? Men are not friends. They are wolves in sheep's clothing. You're just like your father. Selfish, ungrateful, blind. You'll end up beaten, broken, left in a ditch, and you'll have no one to blame but your own stupidity. The venom in her voice, the utter conviction that I was betraying her, aligning myself with the enemy, was a physical blow. Ben, unfortunately, chose that moment to walk down the hall towards his room. Mom saw him, pointed a shaking finger, and screamed, "That's him. That's the pedophile," at the top of her lungs. The look of utter shock and terror on Ben's face haunts me. He froze, eyes wide. Doors cracked open down the hall. The humiliation was absolute, suffocating. I physically pushed my mom towards the stairwell, screaming at her to leave, tears choking me. Security was called. It was a nightmare. That night, I didn't sleep in my room. I stayed with Sarah. I didn't call Mom back. The cord, frayed for years, finally snapped. The fortress walls didn't just crack, they imploded. But what was left wasn't freedom, it was rubble and an overwhelming sense of guilt and terror. Was she right? Was I walking into disaster? The long, ugly unraveling, cutting cords and building self. Ages 24 to 26 graduation loomed. I applied for jobs deliberately far away, across the country. Mom's reaction was predictable devastation laced with manipulation. Why? I need you here. After all I've sacrificed, you're abandoning me, just like him. The guilt was a physical sickness, nausea, migraines, nights spent shaking. But the memory of her screaming at Ben, the look on his face, the suffocating control, it was stronger. I moved. The physical distance was a relief, but the emotional cords were steel cables. The guilt didn't vanish, it weaponized her. Our calls, which I felt obligated to maintain, the dutiful daughter programming still active, became predictable torture. Remember your friend Ben. I bet he's stalking other girls now. Predators don't stop. Ben, I later heard through mutual friends, was mortified by the incident and avoided me entirely, which was understandable. I looked up your new city. Sky-high rape statistics. Hope you enjoy your new life in the emergency room. My doctor says my blood pressure is dangerously high. The stress of knowing what could happen to you, it's killing me. Is that what you want? You'll call me when he hits you. If you survive it. I was drowning. I finally sought therapy. It was the hardest, most necessary thing I'd ever done. Unlearning decades of ingrained fear was like rewiring my brain with a soldering iron. My therapist patiently helped me dismantle the core beliefs. Male kindness equals manipulation. We examined evidence from my life, the bookstore manager, Ben, the professor, Sarah's family that contradicted this. Setting boundaries equals betrayal. I learned that saying no, prioritizing my needs, and limiting contact with someone toxic, even my mother, was not a moral failing, it was self-preservation. My worth equals managing mom's emotions. This was huge. I was not responsible for her happiness, her anxiety, or her trauma. Her feelings were hers to manage. All men are inherently dangerous. We worked on differentiating between healthy caution based on actual behavior and pathological fear based on generalized prejudice. I tentatively tried dating. It was a disaster zone. I'd panic if a guy tried to hold my hand. I'd misinterpret benign comments as veiled threats. I'd ghost genuinely nice guys because their kindness felt suspicious or too good to be true. Conversely, I'd feel weirdly safe with aloof or emotionally unavailable men. Their distance felt familiar, predictable, non-threatening, mirroring the lack of positive male connection I'd known. Therapy sessions often left me emotionally raw, feeling like I was scraping layers of scar tissue off my psyche. It was exhausting, often demoralizing, but slowly, incrementally, I began to see glimmers of change. Meeting him, trust built one brick at a time. Age 27, it happened at a work conference. Not a meet cute, more of a stumble cute. He was juggling for coffees, tripped on a loose carpet edge, and sent a full latte cascading over my shoe. The look of utter horror and apology on his face was comical. He apologized profusely, offered to pay for cleaning or new shoes immediately. I declined, flustered, the old instincts screaming about owing him something. A week later, a small, tasteful gift card to his shoe store arrived at my office with a handwritten note. For the shoe or therapy bills, your call. Deeply sorry again. The latte assassin. It made me laugh, a genuine, unexpected laugh. There was no pressure, no expectation. We started emailing, slowly, casually, about inconsequential things, terrible conference food, a movie we'd both seen, the absurdity of corporate jargon, a funny story about his niece's disastrous hamster funeral. Months passed, just words on a screen. No demands for meetings, no flirtation that felt intrusive. It felt safe, controlled. He knew I was cautious. I'd been vague, but honest about having trust issues. He never pushed. He just showed up consistently with humor and respect. When we finally agreed to meet for coffee months later, my therapist helped me craft an exit plan, public place, my own transportation, a friend tracking my location, a code word to call if I felt unsafe. I told him about the plan, bracing for dismissal or mockery. He just nodded seriously. That's smart. Honestly, I wish more people took safety that seriously. Makes total sense. His respect for my boundaries, even the seemingly extreme ones, was disarming. It wasn't performative, it felt genuine. Mom's last stand, the ultimatum, age 28 somehow. She found his LinkedIn profile. Maybe through a relative, maybe obsessive searching. The explosion was predictable, but no less horrifying. The phone call started with a scream. Divorced. He's divorced. Damaged goods. Broken. Men like that are unstable. They take it out on the next woman. His divorce, I knew, was years prior amicable due to his ex-wife's infidelity. Then he's 35. You're 28. That age gap is predatory. He's grooming you for vulnerability. And finally, the nuclear option, he'll get you pregnant and abandon you. Just like your father did. History repeating. You're walking straight into a trap. I listened, my hand clenched so tight around the phone my knuckles were white. The old fear tried to surge, the guilt choked me, but beneath it was a newer, stronger feeling, rage. Pure, unadulterated rage at the relentless poisoning, the refusal to see me as an adult capable of choice, the determination to keep me imprisoned in her fear. I didn't yell. My voice was ice cold, quiet, and utterly final. Do not speak about him again. Do not contact him. Do not research him. If you mention his name, his age, his past, or make one more prediction about my future based on Dad, we are done. Finished. Her reply was instant, dripping with venomous certainty. Choose. Right now. Your mother who gave you everything, who protected you, or that predator, that abuser waiting to happen. Me or him. The clarity in that moment was terrifying and absolute. There was no middle ground. No version of my life that included both her and my own choices. The programming screamed that choosing myself was the ultimate betrayal, that I was condemning her to loneliness, that I was my father. But the woman in therapy, the woman who tasted a sliver of peace, knew the truth. Her protection was my prison. Her love was conditional on my conformity to her fear. I took a breath that felt like my first. Then we're done. I hung up. I blocked her number. I blocked her email. I blocked her on any social media I rarely used. It wasn't anger, it was survival. The silence that followed wasn't peaceful at first. It was a deafening void filled with the echoes of her voice and the crushing weight of grief for the mother I wished I had, the relationship that never could be. No contact and building real love ages 29 to 31 blocking her felt like amputating a limb. The phantom pain was intense. Guilt washed over me in waves. Grief for the lost connection, however toxic. I felt like an orphan. I had nightmares where I was back in that fortress, the walls closing in. The urge to unblock her, to beg for forgiveness, to soothe her pain was overwhelming at times. Therapy was my anchor. My therapist reminded me, you're grieving the fantasy, the hope of the mother you needed, not the reality of the mother you have. The reality is harmful. With him, love wasn't a thunderclap, it was a slow, steady sunrise after a long, dark night. He knew everything. About my mom, the indoctrination, the therapy, the fear. He never minimized it. Never told me to just get over it. Never got impatient with my triggers. When I froze during our first real kiss, panic locking my muscles, he stopped immediately, pulled back. Hey, it's okay. We can just hug or high five. Seriously. Or we can just sit here and eat these tacos. Zero pressure. Your pace. I burst into tears. He held me, just held me. No agenda. It was the first time I felt truly safe in male arms. When I confessed my fear of walking alone at night, even in our safe neighborhood, he didn't dismiss it. Okay. What makes you feel safer? Me walking with you. A really loud alarm. Self-defense classes. Let's figure it out together. We took a self-defense class. He didn't treat it like it was silly. He treated it like a practical skill. When I worried about what to wear to a work event, fearing unwanted attention, he said, wear whatever makes you feel confident and comfortable. And if anyone looks at you sideways, they'll have me to deal with. But honestly, you'll own the room regardless. It wasn't possessive, it was supportive. He met my carefully chosen friends, the ones who knew my history. Their approval mattered. One said he looks at you like you personally hung the moon and arranged the stars just for him. It's kinda gross, actually. It made me blush, but it also reassured a deep, anxious part of me. He proved his reliability in 1,000 small ways, showing up on time, calling when he said he would, remembering small details I mentioned, handling conflict calmly and respectfully, sharing the mental load of chores and life admin without being asked. He wasn't perfect. He left socks on the floor. He snored sometimes. He had a terrible habit of using the last of the milk and not mentioning it. But his imperfections weren't threats, they were human. And crucially, they were never weaponized. Choosing peace, marriage, and the unvarnished truth. Age 30 to present, we eloped. No bid wedding, no guest list fraught with potential drama or obligatory invites. Just us, an efficient, and two friendly hikers we recruited as witnesses on a breathtaking mountain trail. I wore a simple, elegant emerald green dress, a color that felt like growth, like life. He cried during his vows. I didn't freeze. I didn't panic. I felt grounded, present, safe, happy. Do I wish my mother could have been there? In the abstract, yes. The little girl who craved her mother's approval on a big day still exists. But the woman I am knows the reality. She would have worn black. She would have sobbed uncontrollably about losing me. She would have pulled me aside to whisper dire warnings. She would have tried to corner him, interrogate him, accuse him. She would have poisoned the day with her fear. Her absence, however painful in theory, was the price of my peace. The bitter irony, unearthing the past years into no contact, through a cousin who'd always been kind and discreet, I learned fragments of the truth about my father. The narrative had been fed was not entirely accurate. He wasn't a monster. Had been 19, scared, but had wanted to marry my mom when she got pregnant. She'd refused, convinced marriage was a trap that had control her. Had tried to be involved. Had sent money for years, money she'd refused, sending it back uncashed. Had eventually moved on, remarried, had other children. Had apparently always wondered about me, hoped I was okay, harbored no ill will. He wasn't Prince Charming, but he wasn't the demon she'd painted. Her fortress wasn't built just to protect me from men, it was built to protect herself from her own fears, her own choices, her own interpretation of events. And she used me as both the justification and the prisoner within its walls. Where I stand now, I unblocked her number last year. Not out of hope for reconciliation, but out of a need for finality, for myself. I sent one carefully crafted letter. Mom, I am writing to tell you that I am safe. I am happy. I am healthy. I am married to a kind, respectful man. We have built a good life together, filled with trust and mutual support. I understand you acted from a place of deep fear and past hurt. However, the way you raised me caused profound damage that I have spent years trying to heal from. I cannot have you in my life if your presence means reliving that fear or subjecting my husband to your distrust and accusations. My door is open only under these non-negotiable conditions. You accept my life, my choices, and my marriage without criticism, judgment, interference, or mention of my father in the context of predicting my future. You seek therapy to address your own trauma. Our relationship, if it continues, must be based on mutual respect and peace. If you cannot agree to this, I understand, and I will respect your choice by maintaining my distance. I wish you peace. Your daughter. Her response came a week later, a single line on a plain sheet of paper, in her familiar, sharp handwriting. You made your choice. You are dead to me. It stung. A deep, old wound throbbed. But the pain was clean, sharp, and finite. It lacked the suffocating, chaotic terror of her active presence in my life. It was an ending, not a continuation of the torment. The grief was for what never was, not for what it lost. What I'd lost was poison. My reality today, in 33, my husband knows the whole story. When I wake from a rare nightmare, tangled in sheets, heart pounding with the old, familiar fear, he doesn't say it's over, forget it. He says, I'm here. You're safe. I've got you. Want some tea? And he makes tea. He sits with me. He waits for the storm to pass. That's the love I never knew existed. Not a love built on fear disguised as protection, but a love built on presence, respect, and unwavering support. Am I cured? No. I still double-check locks. I still get a jolt of anxiety if Hayes late coming home without texting. Crowded spaces with unfamiliar men can still feel overwhelming. I still carry the scars, but am learning every day to trust my own judgment, to differentiate real caution from programmed paranoia, to build a life defined by my choices, not my mother's fears. The fortress is gone. In its place, I'm building something open, airy, and strong enough to hold real love. It's not perfect, but it's mine. And it's peaceful. Finally, peacefully mine. To anyone trapped in a parent's prison of fear, you deserve more than their survival narrative. You deserve your own story, even if writing it means walking away from the only family you've ever known. The silence on the other side is not emptiness, it's the space where your own voice, your own life, can finally be heard. Choose the silence. Choose yourself.